So this week's Parsha is the double Parsha of Acharei Mos-K'doshim. And K'doshim has a very famous verse, which is, Daber kol adas b'nei Yisrael v'marata alehem K'doshim to you. Speak to the entire congregation of Israel and tell them, be holy, ki kadosh ani Hashem Elokechem, because I am holy, the Lord your God. And you can ask a question, and the Acharei does, which is, what does God's holiness have to do with our being holy? What kind of reason is that? What kind of rationale is that? Be holy because God is holy. You could say, we know that from one of the explanations of the phrase, Zek Keli V'anvehu, this is my God and I will glorify him, is V'anvehu ani v'hu, I and he. And Chazal are doresh in various places, in various expressions. They say, Mahu rachum, af atah heye rachum, Mahu chanun, af atah heye chanun, Mahu malbish arumim, etc. Just as he is merciful, so should you be merciful. Just as he is gracious, you should likewise be gracious. Just as he clothes the naked, so should you take care of those who need clothing and food, etc. All of that is understandable. We can't understand it in terms of the godly aspect. We cannot begin to fathom the depths of the Almighty's ways, even his chasadim, even his kindnesses. We have no way of really grasping that. But now let's talk about kadosh. Be holy because God is holy. What does that mean? So we have two of the most famous commentaries on the Parsha, Rashi and the Ramban, have differing approaches. One might term it a machlokas. They certainly read it differently. Rashi says, Kadoshim to you. He says, Hevu Perushim min ha'arayos. Min ha'arayos u'min ha'avera. Separate yourself from illicit sexual activity and from sin. The Ramban also famously says that it's possible to scrupulously adhere to the letter of law and still end up being a naval b'rshus haTorah, be a disgusting person within the parameters of that the Torah sets. A person can eat strictly kosher food of the highest level of kashrus. Person could drink only the highest level of kashrus wine and still be a glutton and still be a drunkard. Person could end up being what the Ramban terms as a naval b'rshus haTorah, a degraded person within the parameters of the Torah. So you have Rashi on the one hand saying, separate yourself from illicit sexual relations and from sin, apparently generally. You have the Ramban saying that one should avoid being a naval b'rshus haTorah, a degraded person, even while following the letter of the law. Okay, what does that have to do with God? We cannot begin to ascribe these kinds of behavior to God. God has no body, and God has no such inclinations to begin with. So how does our restraining ourselves from these types of activity equal being holy as God is holy? So we have to, I suggest, take another look at what being holy means. The word rolls off our tongue, kadosh, holy. Kadoshim to you, be holy. But what does that mean? Well, let's reverse engineer. Ki kadosh ani Hashem, ki kadosh ani Hashem Elokechem, because I am holy, the Lord your God. Well, what does that mean? We might suggest that God's holiness implies a constancy a foreverness, an alwaysness, a ready, willing, and ableness. HaKadosh Baruch Hu shomea tfilas kol peh, Nusach Sfard, but it's true, regardless of whether you daven Nusach Sfard or Ashkenaz. HaKadosh Baruch Hu listens to the prayer of every mouth. We understand that there is a notion of hashgacha pratis, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is supervising everything. Kol ma'asecha b'sefer nichtavim. All of your deeds are written in the book. In other words, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is constantly aware. He's constantly monitoring. He's constantly doing. He's constantly adjusting. He's constantly calibrating. He's constantly responding to us, to our expressed needs, to our good deeds, and to our not so good deeds. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is always on. He's always there. I'd like to suggest that that is the notion of Kedusha when it comes to human beings. We must always be there and be on and be ready, willing, and able because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is. How does that relate to Rashi? How does that relate to the Ramban? Well, Rashi says, "Have prushim min arayos umin avera." Separate yourself from illicit sexual activity and from sin generally. These are distracting. We know that there are people who are otherwise great men who have fallen because of lustful temptation, because of illicit sexual activity. People who otherwise had stellar reputations. And we know likewise, if a person is involved in complying with the letter of the law, but he's always looking for loopholes, his focus is not towards doing God's will. His focus is inward. It's how can I satisfy myself within the parameters of halacha, but how can I gratify myself? And if a person's focus is on gratifying himself, then it will not be outward looking. It will not be ready, willing, and able to do the will of God. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, look, we're in this together. Ki kadosh ani Hashem Elokechem, Lord your God. I'm there for you. I'm ready for you. I'm feeding you. I'm feeding the world constantly. What I ask of you is that you likewise be constantly on guard, constantly looking for ways to do the right thing. And I can say that in this time of upheaval, as a result of the coronavirus, the social distancing, the deprivation, the sickness, the illness, and nebuch, the death that the virus has brought, it's brought out the best in many of our people, the untold acts of chesed, of kindness, and people really looking, they're looking for every opportunity to do the right thing, to be vigilant, to do for others who don't have, and to do for God, to daven properly, to do acts of chesed, to feed those who need the sustenance, to visit, albeit perhaps electronically, people who are in need of that kind of communication, people who otherwise don't have a built-in support system. And Kadosh Baruch Hu says, let's rise to the occasion. Let's do this together. I am there for you, and you be there always for me. Kadoshim to you. Have a good Shabbos.